Tonight on the Daily Wrap, families of the victims of that horrific South Carolina shooting confront the man responsible for murdering 9 people in cold blood in a black church in Charleston. We have the very latest. Bernie Sanders surging in New Hampshire. Former Governor John Sununu joins us here to tell us why. And Brian Williams speaks out for the first time since being suspended from NBC. Scenes from an impossibly awkward mea culpa coming up. We discuss all of that, plus potluck and yay and nay. This is the Daily Wrap, live from New York City. And welcome to the show, everybody. I'm Joe Concha, along with my co-host, Rick Unger, Sirius XM. You got some friends here tonight, I understand?
It's all Sirius XM night here, baby.
It won't be anything serious, though, I have a feeling.
It won't be serious. Not with these guys.
If the preview is any indication, absolutely. Meanwhile, host of the Wilco Majority on Sirius XM, Andrew Wilco, is here. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Second time. And finally, Forbes.com contributor, former press secretary for Senator Trent Lott, and president of Empire Solutions, a New York-based strategic communications and growth strategies firm. Tom Basile is here. Tom.
It's actually Scott Walker. Can't you see that?
It does look a
And
little
he's
like
a Sirius
Scott
XM
Walker.
radio host.
Yeah, and he's a Sirius XM
and we're
radio
Sirius,
host.
as we said as well.
It's great to be
Walker.
here. Thank you for having me.
Or a very young Mike Krzyzewski, I could even go with.
Actually, I can see
Winningest
that
coach
too.
of all time, you'll take it. Okay, let's get right to the Daily Download. And today, Charleston church shooter Dylann Roof sat through a bail hearing with Magistrate Judge James B. Gosnell, in which family members of the victims got to address the defendant. But before they could say a word, Judge Gosnell made this statement.
We have victims, 9 of them. But we also have victims on the other side. There are victims on this young man's side of the family. Nobody would have ever thrown them into the whirlwind of events that they have been thrown into. We must find it in our heart at some point in time, not only to help those that are victims, but to also help his family as well.
So what did he just say? Did he say that parents are victims as well?
One of the oddest things I think I've ever seen in a courtroom, and I've seen a lot of things happen in courtrooms. Yes, I mean, basically what he was saying is there's lots of victims here, and keep in mind that that courtroom was filled with family members of the real victims, who, the way they do things in South Carolina, they actually come in at the outset to say something about, you know, they're speaking for those who've been killed. And the judge acknowledges them, but then feels the need to acknowledge the family members of the accused. It was, many people are saying inappropriate. I think that's being kind.
Yeah,
it was beyond bizarre.
Bizarre is the word I was looking for myself.
I don't think there's much debate here. This is a tragedy. I think we'd all say that. I don't know. I get it. He's saying that the family members have this person in their family who is a whirlwind of events. I don't know that anybody cares to talk about that right now.
Not in that courtroom.
At all.
Right.
Look,
Tom, wrong place, wrong time.
This was bizarre, and this is exactly why you shouldn't have cameras in the courtroom, in my opinion. Because you have a judge who is trying to get his 10 minutes of fame. He's grandstanding. Do your damn job. Get the arraignment over with. Dispose of the case that is in front of you and move on. Don't drag this out. Don't make speeches. Just get this kid in and out of his cell, get people in and out of that courtroom as fast as possible, and get the process moving.
Memories of Judge Ito, perhaps.
Exactly.
Because that had cameras. Supreme Court doesn't have cameras. And maybe that's a reason for that.
Even he wasn't that bad when it all started. He kind of became a media star as it went along. It was strange. And bear in mind that the defendant himself, Mr. Roof, was not in the courtroom.
Right.
He was at the jail
link.
on a video link. I don't know what the man was thinking. I honestly don't. I heard the criticism actually on our monitors as I was writing in the background. I'm going, okay, what are they picking on this guy for? And then I went and looked. I went, well, okay, I understand why they're picking on this guy. That was really just
But prosecutors
wrong.
make bizarre statements too. I mean,
Yes,
we
they
saw this
do,
with
but the
going back
judge
to the
isn't
Duke lacrosse
supposed to.
rape case. We saw
They
Mike
do.
Nifong.
They do.
He was out there calling these guys hooligans right from the
That's
get-go.
right.
So you'd want to think that neither the prosecution nor the people behind the bench would be making any statements and keep the trial fair and speedy.
But
Yeah.
prosecutors have a different role. Attorneys have a different role than the judge, and this is not the judge's role. He's trying to make social
We
commentary
don't
here.
care how he feels.
Exactly.
We only want him to rule on the evidence.
Exactly.
And to keep the rules of court. That's what he is there for. Nothing this. It's not his job to give us his feelings
Exactly.
on anything.
Gravitas, right? That's what he has to show there
He's
and
gotta
lead by
know how
example.
He has to rule on evidence
Yep.
issues.
When
That's
those
what he's
cameras
there
are in the
for.
courtroom, it's a different story with these judges.
But you also know that if you're in the trial of the moment, that there's a possible book deal.
Sure.
You know, really,
that's right.
as disgusting as it could be, you know that somebody's in that person's ear, like, "Hey, play this right." There's going to be, news appearances and book deals and op-eds.
Do you think he was thinking that far ahead, or do you
I
think
don't- I don't
really
know.
he
I don't
felt
know.
maybe
It's
as a dad, like if my kid ever did this, boy, I'd feel horrible, and maybe he was just trying to bring people together in some capacity?
He may have
Are
had
judges
good
supposed to bring
intent.
people together,
No,
though?
they're not.
No.
Exactly.
Their job.
No, but I don't think he was thinking book deal or
I
TV
don't know
deal
what he
either.
was thinking. And he may
That
have
doesn't
had
look
good
at the-
intent. It's still not his job to make a speech.
And
And he's also the magistrate judge,
Right,
so
he's
he's
not the
not.
trial
Yeah,
judge.
he's not
He's
the
not the
trial
trial
judge.
Even the trial judge would have been wrong to make a speech.
Absolutely.
It's just
Even more
not
wrong
the
than
Maybe
law.
that's why he's the magistrate judge.
That might be why he's only a magistrate.
This will
judge.
sound like a joke when the first 3 words are going to sound like a joke. My cousin Vinny, but when you look back to Fred Gwynn and the way he was a judge, no nonsense. That's what I want. A guy who isn't putting on a show. So we're all in agreement.
You know how much I appreciate that reference.
Of course. Well, you were a judge in Beverly Hills at
No,
one point.
no. My son-in-law's father directed my cousin Vinny.
Really?
Yes, Jonathan Lynn.
All right. Machio
Great
was
movie.
So we gave him a little pitch there.
Sure.
Good stuff.
Machio was a good choice. Marissa Tomei won a
That's right,
Best
she
Supporting
did.
Actress award, I believe. Anyway, we're going way sideways in this segment. It took less than 48 hours for police to catch and get a confession from Dylann Roof. Why did he do it? He wanted to create a race war. So where is this racist behavior coming from? Senator Hillary Clinton, or former Senator Hillary Clinton, 2016 hopeful, suggests political rhetoric may be the cause.
The people who do this kind of dastardly, horrible act are a very small percentage. But unfortunately, the public discourse is sometimes hotter and more negative than it should be, which can, in my opinion, trigger people who are less than stable.
When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists.
A recent entry into the Republican presidential campaign said some very inflammatory things about Mexicans. Everybody should stand up and say, that's not acceptable. You don't talk like that on talk radio. You don't talk like that on, the kind of political campaigns. No, but I think he is emblematic. So I want people to understand it's not about him, it's about everybody.
So when Bill Parcells was a coach of the Dallas Cowboys, he would not refer to Terrell Owens by name. He only called him the player. And I found it interesting that Hillary Clinton there would not refer to Donald Trump by name, just a candidate who just entered the race. Did she have a point?
Well, look, I mean, I took her point. I didn't particularly like the things that Donald Trump said about Mexicans either in his speech. However, suggesting in any way, shape, or form that anything Donald Trump had to say had anything to do with motivating this kind of
Quite a
attack,
stretch,
I'm not
Andrew.
buying that.
Yeah, okay, I don't remember this application of language being analyzed when Lee Boyd Malvo and John Allen Muhammad were killing white people all over D.C.
Well, we're having a
and I don't
presidential
think that
race now.
was the rhetoric driving the Students for a Democratic Society and the Weather Underground when they were bombing people, or can we just say there are people who are nuts and it has nothing to do with talk radio or Donald Trump?
Yeah,
Just so
yeah.
the audience is aware, you're referring to the snipers in Washington.
Yes,
that
the
were going
DC
to- right.
sniper.
Yeah.
It's funny how quickly Democrats make this about the air fingers, quote, other side, but when people who may be the most extreme in their ideology are doing things that are violent and murderous, well, there's just a couple of crackpots, and there's crackpots everywhere in society. I'm sorry, I'm not going to take responsibility for this guy because I do a talk radio show.
Yeah, I don't think
that's
you
conservative.
should. I agree.
I
with you.
refuse.
I don't think you should.
Tom?
Who knew Trump was this influential? Look, there's a reason why she doesn't mention Trump's name is because she's trying to paint all Republicans in this light.
Right.
Look, we are looking at this is a woman who is running an angry campaign. She's an angry, unlikable individual
How
who,
do you know?
over
She
the
hasn't
last
said
week,
anything.
over the last week, she has said Republicans hate gays, they hate immigrants, they want to deport everybody, they want to take away your health care,
Voting
she's
rights.
scaring seniors, black voting rights, minority voting rights. It has just been more negative campaigning
do we
from
get to
Hillary
talk
Clinton.
about what the Republicans are saying about her by any chance?
They're
Because
just
that's
as
all
wrong.
sweetness and nice,
They're just
right?
as wrong.
No, look, I mean, this is all politics, but I am with you guys on the fact that suggesting that Donald Trump.
It was good too.
Hey, we got to
It
go.
wasn't necessary.
We got to go, unfortunately. But,
It was wrong.
this is the first example of what we're going to see, where what Donald Trump says is what every Republican thinks, and this is going to be the strategy we see going forward. Anyway, can a flag really be blamed for all of this? Keep it right here. This is Newsmax.
Congressman, you just talked about racial reconciliation. A symbolic move could be something like, you know what, enough of this putting the Confederate flag on any part of state property.
In the wake of this, 24 hours after, say, you know, the solution here is moving that flag. All of a sudden, you've got some folks who absolutely, I mean, I talked to Lonnie Randolph, for instance, who's head of the NAACP here in the state. He would tell you firsthand how much he believes that ought to take place. But if I was talking to other folks, you know, they'd say, wait a minute, my great-great-grandfather, you know, died in the Battle of Bull Run, and for me it's a symbol of either states' rights or of the loss that was felt within our family. So it's a very, very complex issue.
Welcome back to Daily Wrap. I'm Joe Concha, along with my co-host, Rick Unger, Andrew Wilco, and Tom Basile. That was South Carolina Congressman Mark Sanford with NBC's Chuck Todd. Much has been made of the Confederate flag in the past 2 days. Yesterday, we talked about the Supreme Court ruling against the group Sons of the Confederate Army, which asked the court to force the state of Texas to approve a specialty license plate with the Confederate flag. Today, we know that Dylann Roof's car sported a Confederate States of America license plate. There's his car. Let's zoom in on the license plate, folks, in the control room, if we could. There it is. And yeah, so that's obviously been a big topic in cable news today and in talk radio as well. The three flags displayed on the plate are the first and third flags of the Confederate States of America and the Confederate battle flag. The 21-year-old Roof made it no secret that he was a racist to his friends and his victims. Many say it was in poor taste that South Carolina still flies the Confederate flag alongside its state flag, especially in light of yesterday's shooting. For some, the flag represents slavery, while others defend it as a piece of Southern history and pride. Mississippi even has a Confederate flag as part of their state flag. Is it time to say goodbye to the Confederate flag once and for all?
It's very tricky, particularly in South Carolina where this argument is taking place. The Confederate flag used to fly over the State House there. There was a lawsuit, there was a deal made where the Confederate flag was moved to a monument that they built on the State House grounds, in exchange for which there was a monument built to slavery and the people who had suffered under that. Here's the guts of the argument. You can actually, if you step back and look at it, you can have some sympathy for the people who say, I lost my grandfather, my great-grandfather fighting for the Confederacy. The problem is this: it is so deeply offensive to black Americans in that state and everywhere else. And you have to kind of look at this and go, you know what? There are Germans who lost their grandparents in World War II fighting for Germany, but we don't see them waving the swastika around anywhere as an honorific to them. So it's probably time that the Confederate flag go in recognition of the fact that it really is so deeply insulting to a lot of
While
Americans.
you're making your point, Rick, you kind of reminded me of something where you said that this is so deeply offensive to African Americans,
Right.
and it is. Maybe this is kind of like drawing Muhammad cartoons, how that's offensive to Muslims. In other words, it's a symbol.
Well, that's a free speech issue. This is a state symbol issue.
Nobody says they can't do it.
Well,
They
symbol
can
is
do
speech,
it.
though, right?
But it's still,
But it's the
still
state
offensive.
versus individuals.
Right.
And if you want to say, I understand where you're coming from. I'm not defending. I don't know why we're even. This seems very pedestrian to be dragging this into this. The guy was a racist. This is a state with an Indian. A governor of Indian descent, a black senator, a Republican, Tim Scott,
Yeah.
who won overwhelmingly.
First senator ever.
Okay, so the state, you can't look at the state and say it's this wholly racist place because of this flag. If you want to remove it, it is part of history, that can't be denied. The pain that it invokes is understandable, but dragging it into this debate, what?
And
It's been there all this time.
I actually
48
take your
hours,
point.
too.
I mean, you just said it, and I got to acknowledge it. It's been there all this time.
Right.
Is this really the necessary place? And that's really what Representative Sanford was saying.
So
that's a fair comment.
No, but here's where they kind of get it wrong, all right? That flag was not lowered to half staff because there was legislation in the kind of game that they played with the slavery monument
Right.
and moving the flag. Even though the U.S. flags were lowered to half-mast on today because of this tragedy, that flag stayed flying high. I think that that's a legislative fix, but you know what? If people really are this offended by this symbol, then legislate it. then put it up for a referendum and let the people of South Carolina decide whether or not they want the flag or not.
I think that's
Yeah, we're in New
reasonable.
York. I don't think we really care.
No, we don't. But that's a
Right.
reasonable
And you know what?
solution.
Flag
Let
or
them
no
vote.
flag, racism and hatred will still exist.
Right.
And there will be another symbol that will take its place.
You know what's amazing?
Referendum's a good
My
idea.
favorite show growing up, leaps. Nothing was even close to it. My Friday night, 8 o'clock, CBS was the Dukes of Hazzard.
Right.
And
Yeah.
the General Lee, I had 3 toy General
I had one.
Lees. I said if I won the lottery tomorrow, I would buy a General Lee because that would be the coolest thing ever. And what was on top of that car? Let's see it, guys. The Confederate flag.
Okay, but that's one of America's finest muscle cars, the '68
Yeah,
Hemi
I agree.
Charger. I mean, come on.
We all
It's
thought
incredible.
it was cool. We didn't realize
that's
at
the
that
funny
point
part.
that it was such a
But this-
horrible symbol to
but,
people.
But Knight Rider, okay? I mean,
didn't have a Confederate
for
flag.
young boys, I was one of them too. It was about the car. We
Yeah.
love the car.
No, I
It
get
did
that
have a
completely.
Confederate- You couldn't do that
But
today.
that's his point.
You
Yeah,
couldn't
that's
miss
the
that
point.
flag, and no one said a peep
Right.
about
But
it. It was
if
the
the flag
number one
wasn't
show in
there,
the country.
if the flag wasn't on the car, we'd still love the show.
We would.
Oh, I agree. That's not my point.
But
my
today,
point is,
if you did that,
for
it would be
people-
huge.
Look,
you couldn't do it.
you couldn't do it.
You couldn't
Actually,
put
they
that
have
on
that
there.
Geico commercial with Bo
they
and Luke
never
do.
show it from
Oh, yeah,
above.
but they don't
Okay,
show,
okay.
They don't show that.
It
yeah.
So-
cheapens the bigger issues about race to boil it down to a flag. And
Agreed.
every time something like this
It's a
happens,
symbol.
we have this
Pedestrian.
stupid debate.
The word is pedestrian.
Your word, pedestrian.
Pedestrian, exactly.
But
It's
let
cheap.
let the people of the states decide individually what they want to do, and let's move on.
And know what's amazing also, if I could just finish the point on the Dukes of Hazzard, Dallas was after it, which was the polar opposite of that show. And that was number 2. Who did the programming? And it was Friday night. It was
People
the
who
most
like
watched
Southern
show.
But it
white
worked.
people on TV.
It worked, I know. Isn't that amazing? It shows you how far we've come amazingly. Anyway, Bernie Sanders is becoming a big problem for Hillary Clinton. We'll tell you why. Stay tuned. And welcome back to The Wrap. Before we jump in, let's jump on board, shall we? Newsmax wants to send one lucky couple on a 7-day Silver Sea cruise to the Caribbean this winter. Obviously, a luxury cruise on the Silver Wind is a trip of a lifetime. To win, you must enter our sweepstakes, however. Visit newsmax.com/sweepstakes to enter. That's newsmax.com/sweepstakes. So, the Hillary.com, or the Hill.com, excuse me, featuring, we have Hillary in here so much, I just automatically defaulted to that, featuring a story today about 2016 hopeful Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont. The headline reads, Sanders' surge is becoming a bigger problem for Clinton. The self-described socialist is a big draw in New Hampshire and Iowa, and is even getting some support from Elizabeth Warren backers. One big difference between Clinton and Sanders, he's not accepting big super PAC money.
I worry about us moving to an oligarchy where our political system is controlled by the rich and the powerful. I am raising money from small individual contributions. BernieSanders.com has raised now some 200,000 people have sent in small contributions. I don't have a super PAC. I don't want the money from the billionaires, and that's the way we're going to run our campaign.
So, can this independent from Vermont be a serious contender? Well, I think we have just the guy to answer that question. We're now joined by 3-term New Hampshire governor and former co-chairman of the George H.W. Bush 1988 presidential campaign. I think that went pretty well. As well as his chief of staff from 1989 to 1991, John H. Sununu, joining us from New Hampshire. Looking well, sir. How are you?
I'm feeling great. How are you guys?
Outstanding.
All good.
Governor Sununu is also the author of a tremendous new book. It's called The Quiet Man, The Indispensable Presidency of George H.W. Bush. So, my first question for you, Governor. Your experience in politics is second to none. Senator Sanders seems to be making a move, to the surprise of many. Is it largely symbolic, or does he actually have a real chance?
Well, you have to understand what Bernie Sanders' role is. Bernie Sanders' role is really to show how weak Mrs. Clinton is. And if he does that, I'm not sure Bernie Sanders will be the competition. I think that's when the Democratic Party starts looking at someone like Joe Biden or John Kerry in order to pick up the slack. But he's sort of the front, the leader, the tip of the spear, I guess that's the word I'm looking for, in this assault on Mrs. Clinton. And he will do his job if he demonstrates with polling numbers that she really can't win.
Governor, it's Rick Unger. Look, I don't agree with you about most things, but I will say that you're one of the more astute political observers I'm aware of, certainly up in your home state. So I take you very seriously when you point this out.
Rick, you can't be that wrong all the time.
I like you, you know that. So, you know, maybe I am that wrong. But I gotta ask you, how close do you honestly believe that he can get? Yeah, he's putting on a pretty good show right now, but don't you feel as time goes on and the campaign gets serious, we'll see Bernie Sanders fall back substantially?
Nobody's voting for Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders is the box they check when they say we don't want Hillary Clinton.
I understand, but do you think the law check?
She got 41% here in the last poll. He got 31. The 41 means 59% of the Democratic primary voters did not want to be identified with her. That's not a trivial number.
No, you're right. I agree with that.
Governor, I have to ask, and you know, our viewers know this about me. I declared a horse in this race. Not a lot of hosts do that, but I've decided to jump in. He hasn't even declared yet, however, and that's the governor
Who's that?
of Ohio. His name is John Kasich.
Oh, John Kasich.
Yeah, and I think his record as Ohio governor, most impressive, I think, of any candidate running or, you know, that may run. And I think his candor and his genuine passion for all Americans is unmatched. I think he's a very, very formidable candidate. I understand that you are perhaps helping him make his decision.
No,
help me out here. Is he going to run?
My son.
And what do you think his chances
It's the
are?
other John Sununu. It's the imposter John Sununu.
Oh!
My son, the senator.
Okay, you look a heck of a lot alike. But if John Kasich ran, in all seriousness,
sure, John would be a formidable candidate. Why
is that?
John, as you say, has a great record as a governor. I'm very partial to governors. I hope that the Republican process ends up being amongst Jeb Bush and John Kasich and Christie and Walker. And I really think the country needs a governor in the White House to clean the mess that's there. Someone who's dealt with legislatures, somebody who's been able to bring both sides of legislatures together to come and pass laws, somebody who understands how to cope with the bureaucracy, and someone that understands that leadership is an individual quality in which you have to spend personal political capital in order to do well for your constituencies.
Regardless of who the candidate is, and this will be a one-word answer for you, does the GOP take back the White House in 2016?
Yes. The pendulum of history is there. The pendulum of history is there. Since 1952, no party has held the White House for more than 8 years except once. That was George Herbert Walker Bush, the subject of that wonderful book, The Quiet Man.
And let's put the book up once again, everybody, as we say goodbye to John Sununu and help him enjoy his weekend. Governor, thanks so much for coming on. The Quiet Man, the indispensable presidency of George H.W. Bush. John Sununu, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, guys.
And I'll be reading it this weekend.
Absolutely. Brian Williams finally sits down to talk about what happened before his suspension. We'll talk about that. Stay tuned. And welcome back to Daily Wrap. Well, former NBC anchor Brian Williams finally speaking out in a sit-down interview with today's show's Matt Lauer on the events leading up to the 6-month suspension that we've all heard about. Williams says the time has been torturous, but reflective.
You know, in our work, I have always treated words very carefully. That's the coin of our realm. That's our tool. It's the key to our credibility and our integrity. But Matt, it is clear that after work, when I got out of the building, when I got out of that realm, I used a double standard. Something changed, and I was sloppier, and I said things that weren't true.
When I got out of that building and stopped reading a teleprompter, I said things that weren't true. The news veteran of 22 years says his ego is to blame in all of this, and he was just trying to impress others and prove something, not mislead anyone.
Looking back, it had to have been ego that made me think I had to be sharper, funnier, quicker than anybody else. I told the story correctly for years before I told it incorrectly. I was not trying to mislead people.
And that was his John Kerry moment, apparently. Finally, Lauer gets to what we've all been wondering. Did you know you were lying?
Did you know when you went on nightly news that you were telling a story that was not true?
No. It came from a bad place. It came from a sloppy choice of words. this came from clearly a bad place, a bad urge inside me.
So, after that one interview went just perfectly, Williams is now slated to anchor breaking news and special reports over at MSNBC. That starts in mid-August. Will this interview help Williams regain the public trust?
Well, look, I've been feeling bad for this guy because I'm sure he's sitting home and he's watching, Hillary Clinton tell people that she was a pauper when she left the White House, and that she took fire in Bosnia, and nobody cares. And here, this poor guy makes up a couple of stories like he did with Katrina, because there's a pattern of behavior here, not just one, and everybody goes crazy on him. So I think this was a good interview for him to finally say, I screwed up. I'm sorry, I want a second chance, people, I want to move on.
Andrew, he gets a dream job right now in that he will just be doing breaking news on MSNBC.
Oh.
And Eric Wemple, Washington Post.
I'm not sure that's his dream.
Oh. Yeah, well, I'm obviously being sarcastic. Eric Wemple, Washington Post, documented in June when those times would occur, and they would happen 7 different times out of a possible 20 days, which means he'll literally be sitting around waiting for news to break. And people say, well, he's like Shep Smith on Fox, where Shep jumps in whenever there's breaking news. The difference is Shepard Smith was given a show. Brian Williams isn't even getting a show. He'll just be Mariano Rivera waiting in a bullpen.
He had the apex of news jobs,
Yeah.
okay? Second only to the CBS Evening News that was passed down from Cronkite to Rather, I'm sorry, I'm not feeling bad here. You want to know why we have an all-time disrespect of the mainstream media? There it is. I mean, can you imagine if he was interviewing Rachel Dolezal and he said, "Are you lying about your race?" I mean, this is embarrassing. I actually am a journalism major. I don't use it. I do talk radio, but if these major anchors, these 7-figure anchors, can't be trusted, there's no trust in the mainstream media.
You brought up a great stat, or at least the general stat, which is no one trusts the media as much as they used to. After Watergate, trust in media was 74% because Woodward and Bernstein spoke truth to power, and Nixon and so on. It's now down to about 39. I mean, that's almost half of people say, I don't even trust the media anymore.
Well, what do you think they're thinking of when they answer those polling questions? Who pops in their head? It's not the beat guy for the New York Times or the Washington Times, or I don't care what side you're on, that they're thinking about. It's not the guy out there running. They're thinking about the Rush Limbaughs. They're thinking about the Rachels. I'm trying to cover both sides here.
Okay.
That's who they're thinking of.
And
of course they don't trust them.
That's
they're thinking about infotainment.
Do you think that he was? I'm trying to get to why he would have lied, because he had everything. He's almost a perfect guy. But let me couch it this way. Dan Rather got his chops in Vietnam. Right. You can say we will about now, but Dan Rather now, but he was a reporter. And Scott Pelley with 60 Minutes, he does some real reporting. And Brokaw had gravitas, and Jennings had gravitas, and Williams was a good-looking guy who read a prompter, and I think he felt he had to be like one of the boys. Is that accurate?
I think, well, we'll never know. I don't know what happens inside his head. People do strange things, but that would certainly be a rational explanation for why he might do that. But I do think it's enough already. The guy paid a price.
I agree.
Not that we're going to have any benefits for him. He's still going to be paid well and all that, but enough. He paid the price.
Yep, that's true. In fact, MSNBC actually has a poster of his time there. There it is. Rachel Dolezal. Look, I'm Rachel Dolezal's father, and I'm an African American, and that is the MSNBC poster. Wow.
At least if he's doing breaking news, he won't have time to make up any stories.
That's a very good point. Okay, well, coming up next is potluck time. This is the Daily Wrap. Do not go anywhere. And welcome back to Daily Wrap. Before we get going here, we want to hear your thoughts on the issues we're talking about tonight. Go to newsmaxtv.com/comments and let us know. All right, it's potluck time. It's part of the show. We go around the table, share our favorite stories of the day. Age before beauty, Unger puts you
That would
first.
be me. So this goes under the department of be careful what you wish for. Now this is going to come as a shock to some of my co-panelists here, which is precisely why I chose to do this story tonight. But according to the CBO and a report issued today, were we to repeal Obamacare, it would end up extending the United States deficit at the low end $137 billion and at the expected amount of $350 billion. Let me repeat that. If we were to repeal Obamacare, get rid of it, it will cost the deficit $350 billion. Now, you may be wondering how that could possibly make sense. I mean, after all, you get rid of the subsidies, you're saving a ton of money, and that's absolutely true. But what people forget is that there are other things included in the law that raise money, and this is how the projections were all done. For instance, what we pay hospitals under Medicare was dramatically sliced when the ACA was passed. That would go away. The taxes that are raised, the Cadillac plans, all of these different things that come with the deal that raised revenues would disappear. So now all of a sudden we have a situation where the Republicans are not only freaking out about what they're going to do if the Supreme Court, either next week or the week after, because they're running out of time, should they decide that all those subsidies are going to go away in states that do not run their own healthcare exchanges, then the Republicans, some of them are going to want to repeal the law. If they do, get ready to see us go in the hole another $350 billion, or to do something, because a lot of people are going to be suffering. The bottom line here is this news just keeps getting worse and worse and worse for the anti-Obamacare foes, and I don't see anybody coming up with anything that's going to change that. Now, this is when we hear from our friends over here who are going to have something to say about it.
No, the Hill's reporting that they lost $3 billion in Obamacare payments. And they said we're solving or have solved the problem. That's like we're saving or creating jobs. They aren't solving anything.
You're right, but that's not speaking to the issue.
I think Tom and I would be in agreement that if the intent was to have every citizen of this republic have access to the subsidies, then they should have put that in the law in the
I'm not
first
disagreeing,
place.
but again, not speaking to the subject. The point here is, if we lose Obamacare, if it is revoked, gone away, it will actually increase our deficit $350 billion.
That's if you think the government should be spending on health care.
Tom?
Look, you know, people care about their wallets, all right? This is a non-story, and it's a non-story because for many Americans, particularly middle-class Americans, healthcare has gone up. And the cost of healthcare has gone up, and they know that taxation has gone up. Doctors are making less. We're going to have a shortage of doctors in this country because of this law. The law, by the way, hasn't survived. It's already been changed 40 times.
None of that explains why this would be a non-story. I didn't realize
it's a non-story because
I didn't realize that $350 billion increase in the deficit is just
Whose
a
study
non-story.
is that? Whose is that?
The CBO.
Okay.
Requested
and how
by
does
the
CBO
Republicans.
work? How does the CBO
What do
work?
you mean, how do they work?
Well, they're told one way or the other to score in the parameters of the people
And
telling them what to score.
who was telling them how to do it?
It could be the Republicans.
It was.
But you have to remember
You
that
may have heard the Republicans now have
all
the
of those
majority of the
promises of a
House.
$2,500 drop were also based on a lie. Just like if you like your doctor, if you like your plan.
You're just you guys are having trouble staying with the point.
Look,
$350 billion worth of additional deficit. You're questioning the CBO. The things they were given by the Republicans, who now happen to control Congress. They're the ones who would give it to them. You're saying it's a non-story. I may be a Democrat, but when I hear an additional $350 billion added to the deficit, that's a real story to me.
I think the one smart thing that Republicans have done, at least in the response to this, to say, okay, we're going to allow these subsidies to continue for 2 years. And if I do my math correctly, that's until 2017.
Yeah, but not all of them are saying that, and that's the problem. There are Republicans out there who want to solve this crisis by kicking, if it becomes a crisis, by kicking the can down the road past an election.
Yeah.
Okay, and I won't blame them for that. Obama did the same thing. I absolutely acknowledge that. But that doesn't mean that it's going to happen, because you have those same Republicans in the House who feel, and most importantly, you have people running for president who are Republicans who can hang up a bill in the Senate who can't afford to take that point of view.
The problem is
they've got to
very quickly, and we got to move on, unfortunately, to something that's the exact opposite of what we're talking about right now. Or maybe it's not, because it does involve health care. North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un claims his country has found a cure for, get your pencils ready, AIDS, Ebola, and cancer. It's true. According to the official announcement on the Korean news website, the new injectable wonder drug called Kumdang-2 is made up of ginseng grown from fertilizer and a mix of other ingredients that cannot be revealed. So, I think we have Kim Jong-un, actually a couple of pictures of him as far as the miracle cure. There he is. Of course, he is a doctor. What else does he do in his spare time? Yes, he's also a runner as well, which is outstanding, and a tremendous golfer. I believe he shot a 47, not even front nine, whole course.
He shot a 47.
He is incredible. So, Kim Jong-un has just cured basically everything. Up next, it's next for Yay or Nay. Stay here. It's happy time, people. Welcome back to Daily Wraps. Time for Yay or Nay. First up, hashtag Prez candidates better than Trump. Yes, that is a hashtag. Is currently trending over on the Twitter right now. Yes, that's following Donald Trump's announcement Tuesday that he's running for president, you might have heard about. Here are some suggestions. Better than Trump? Ron Swanson. How about, let's see, Paul Blart. He is a mall cop. We got another, Krusty the Clown. Sure, why not? Scrooge McDuck. Sure. Kanye West. And finally, of course, an actual chia pet. Better than Trump. Interesting. Would any of these suggestions make a better candidate than the Donald? Yay or nay, Tom?
Yeah, I think that Scrooge McDuck would be great. I've always admired the fact that he's not been afraid to allow himself to be seen swimming in his own cash.
He makes a good point. Andrew?
I like Scrooge McDuck, too.
2 for 2?
Not afraid to be rich, you know?
I like Nick Offerman. Ron, what was the character's name, the very first one?
Oh, it was Ron Swanson.
Ron Swanson. I like him. The problem is that without his mustache, he's just not the same, and he cut his mustache off.
Interesting.
He's my man.
I go with Krusty, you know. As we said, it's all about infotainment, and Krusty has, I think, 27 years in broadcasting, so that could work out. Anyway, the Obama administration now says a woman will be featured on the new $10 bill set to come out in 5 years. The redesign will celebrate the 100th anniversary of women getting the right to vote. The $10 bill currently features Alexander Hamilton. He's only the country's first Secretary of the Treasury and stuff, who supported a national currency, so let's get rid of him. While no official names have come out of the White House as of yet, rumors indicate that Hamilton may be featured on a new bill in some way, like a $3 bill or something. Finally, featuring women on American currency, Rick Unger, yay or nay?
Absolutely.
Okay, better question. Who will it be?
Oh, that's easy. It'll be Kathy Cabrera, my wife.
Outstanding. Well done. Andrew, I'm speechless
well, I'm
from
sure
that answer.
there's some people that would like Hillary Clinton on
No, we just want her signing
There's
the money,
no
not
opposition
being on
in the
money.
conservative movement to having women on the currency. Susan B. Anthony, Betsy Ross. There are plenty of American women of note that are worthy of being on the currency. But
Beyonce?
To remove Alexander Hamilton, let's not have anyone that was there writing the Federalist Papers involved in our, what a minor figure that guy was.
Yeah, that's what I'm more shocked at, that they went after him of all people, Hamilton.
The Obama administration going after the guy who wrote the Federalist Papers. I think that also the timing of this is very curious. Maybe it's meant to help people get used to the idea of a woman president, maybe. But I think it's sure, why not? And I'm sorry that they're picking on poor Alex. But Susan B. Anthony would be a good choice.
Yeah, I think
You
so.
guys aren't voting for my wife?
Susan B. Anthony.
Because your wives are sitting there going, why didn't they say me?
But she married you, so there's a question of judgment there.
That's a very good point. Eleanor Roosevelt or Oprah?
By the way, breaking news,
Yes.
seriously breaking news, Alex Rodriguez, if you're a Yankee fan, just hit his 3,000th.
Wow. Boy, that's tainted, huh? The first thing I think of is like, okay, so you cheated, right?
Right.
And milestones mean nothing in baseball anymore. And Babe Ruth still holds, or I'm sorry, Roger Maris's record, I think, 61
That's
home
for
runs.
real, man.
That is for real. With 79 or whatever bombs
That's for real.
in 2003, no, it doesn't count. Anyway, going sideways. Finally, vacations are a great opportunity to let loose and try a few new things. But as a new survey from Travel Zoo has found out, some travelers are going a bit too far. The survey of 9,500 travelers from the U.S., UK, Canada, China, and Germany uncovered that Americans are the worst offenders of the 3 most common vacation malpractices. 64% of Americans admitted to tinkling in the ocean. 69% have admitted to stealing toiletries from a hotel bathroom. And 24% have called in sick to work to extend their vacation a day or so. The question, Tom, are you guilty of any of these crimes?
Well, first of all, they're not crimes. They're not real offenses. The toiletries are there because you rented the room.
Those
and you've been
robes are
taken.
expensive.
Well, the robes maybe, but I haven't taken a robe. But
Okay.
I don't think these are offenses. Absolutely, I've done them.
So you've taken soap,
I've
shampoo.
soap
What about
and
the
shampoo
ocean
and-
thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Probably.
Andrew, enjoy your dinner, everybody. Andrew.
I don't know. I usually use the soap, so there's nothing to take. And as far as the ocean, no.
Interesting. And?
I actually haven't.
Wow. Stole soap, yes. Robe, yes. Ocean, almost every time. It's a big place. Problem is, Jersey Shore, the bathrooms are like a mile away. You got to take care of yourself. I'll be at the Jersey Shore this weekend, by the way. Enjoy yourselves in Spring Lake. Thank you, panel. Appreciate it. Newsmax Prime with J.D. Hayward. That's next.